Pride and Prejudice begins like a romantic comedy. A rich bachelor rents a country estate. A mother panics. A father makes jokes. 5 daughters. No son. An entailed inheritance. It feels light. But it isn't. Because this is not primarily a love story. It is a novel about how we decide who people are, and how dangerously wrong we can be. In Regency England, marriage is not emotional fulfillment. It is economics, inheritance, survival. The Bennets are respectable, and one generation away from instability. So Mrs. Bennet's hysteria is ridiculous and completely rational. And then Austen does something ruthless. She opens her great romance with a 23-year-old marriage that does not work. No betrayal, no scandal, just incompatibility. Mr. Bennet values wit, irony, detachment. Mrs. Bennet values urgency, status, security. They share a house, not a mind. And that is the real question of the novel. What kind of mind makes love durable? Different modes of femininity. Austen begins testing answers immediately, through the daughters. Each one embodies a different strategy of surviving the marriage market. Jane trusts goodness. Elizabeth trusts perception. Mary trusts principles. Lydia trusts attention. 4 temperaments. 4 epistemologies. Jane trusts goodness. She feels deeply, reveals little. Her generosity protects her from cruelty, but it also risks passivity. And in a world that requires encouragement, silence almost costs her Bingley. Elizabeth's intelligence is adaptive. She reads a room in real time. In a society governed by introductions and impressions, timing is power. Mary reads extensively, but cannot translate knowledge into social fluency. She has information without instinct. Lydia confuses visibility with value. Though I am the youngest, I'm the tallest. Height becomes currency. Attention becomes identity. Austen is not merely contrasting personalities. She is asking, which form of intelligence survives contact with reality? The assembly. How fast we decide. At the first ball, reputations are minted in one evening. Bingley wins the room instantly. He dances every dance, he smiles, he participates. In this world, participation is moral evidence. To dance is to acknowledge others publicly. It is ritualized intimacy. Darcy enters with everything, wealth, presence, status, and then he withdraws. He does not dance, he does not circulate, he stays apart. In another era, this might be introversion. Here it reads as superiority. Silence becomes pride, and then the line. Elizabeth is tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me. It's small, careless, offhand. But she hears it. She laughs. She retells it with great spirit. It is witty. It is controlled. It is also the beginning of prejudice, because once pride is wounded, interpretation hardens. And Austen's central question sharpens with it. How quickly do we decide who someone is? Before evidence, before intimacy, before correction. Jane and Elizabeth. 2 epistemologies. After the ball, the sisters do what we all do after a party, analyse. Jane reads people upward. If someone is pleasant, she assumes they are pleasant all the way down. Her optimism isn't stupidity, it's moral generosity. She refuses to conclude too quickly. Elizabeth reads critically. She distinguishes. She evaluates motive. She prides herself on discernment. And here Austen performs her most dangerous inversion. Elizabeth is sharper, but Jane is often more accurate. Why? Because Elizabeth trusts her own judgment. Jane distrusts hers. When Wickham appears, charming, articulate, injured, he offers a story that perfectly fits Elizabeth's suspicion of Darcy. The narrative is coherent, balanced, persuasive. Elizabeth believes him, not from foolishness, from consistency. The story confirms what she already thinks. This is confirmation bias, centuries before the term existed. Not hatred, not stupidity. Interpretive loyalty to what one already believes. She says there was truth in his looks, but truth in his looks is not truth, and the town joins her. Everybody was pleased to think how much they had always disliked Mr. Darcy. Prejudice becomes communal pleasure. The sharper the mind, the more seductive certainty becomes. Jane's generosity protects her from cruelty. Elizabeth's intelligence exposes her to overconfidence, and Austen refuses to flatter either of them. The mature mind must know when to be Jane, and when to be Elizabeth. Pride as an ecosystem. By now, pride saturates the novel. Not dramatic arrogance, not villainy, certainty. Everyone trusts their own way of seeing. Mr. Bennet's pride lies in irony. He sees folly instantly, but his superiority excuses inaction. Intelligence becomes detachment. Mary's pride lies in abstraction. She trusts principles more than people. Darcy's pride lies in structure, rank, discipline, seriousness. He believes his judgment is reliable because it is trained. But discipline without humility becomes condescension. Elizabeth's pride is subtler. She is perceptive, socially agile, analytically quick. But her intelligence becomes epistemic confidence. She forms conclusions quickly, and once formed, she defends them. They are not immoral. They are convinced. Netherfield. Performance and class. When Jane falls ill and Elizabeth walks 3 muddy miles to nurse her, the contrast sharpens. The Bingley sisters see vulgarity, Darcy sees vitality. Class prejudice rarely says, you are inferior. It says, you lack refinement. The Bingleys' wealth is enormous. And new. They are upwardly mobile, not yet rooted. Their snobbery is aspirational. They distance themselves from the very ladder that lifted them. Then comes the accomplished woman debate. Music, languages, drawing, extensive reading. Darcy's standard sounds admirable until you notice how exclusionary it is. The ideal becomes so elevated that almost no one qualifies. Elizabeth sees the trap, and everything shifts. They begin testing each other intellectually. Darcy begins to fall, and the narrator calls it mortifying. Not because he dislikes her, because he admires her. And that admiration destabilizes his hierarchy. He is not fighting attraction. He is fighting structure. Meanwhile, Elizabeth misreads him entirely. When he watches, she assumes judgment. When he listens, she assumes satire. Once she has decided he is proud, every gesture confirms it. Pride meets prejudice. Mr. Collins and structural marriage. Mr. Collins is pride in clerical form. Inflated downward, servile upward. His proposal is delivered like a legal document. First, secondly, thirdly. Marriage, for him, is duty, reputation, Lady Catherine's recommendation. Elizabeth refuses, not romantically, but rationally. Compatibility of mind matters more than security, but her refusal only succeeds because her father supports it. Female agency still depends on male endorsement. Charlotte Lucas accepts Collins, not because she is foolish, because she is realistic. Happiness in marriage is entirely a matter of chance. This is not cynicism. It is market awareness. Charlotte understands what Elizabeth does not yet. Well-educated young women of small fortune do not have infinite options. Marriage for Charlotte is infrastructure. At Hunsford, Elizabeth sees what that looks like. Rooms arranged strategically, conversations shortened, exposure managed. Charlotte cannot reform Collins, so she engineers tolerability. It is not romantic, it is competent. And Elizabeth's poor Charlotte still carries a trace of superiority. Her intelligence is brilliant, but not yet fully humble. The proposal. Pride meets prejudice. Darcy proposes. In vain have I struggled. He declares love and, in the same breath, rehearses every reason she should be grateful: her inferior connections, her embarrassing family, the degradation he has overcome to love her. He believes he is being honest, he is being proud. Elizabeth refuses, not delicately, not cautiously, precisely. She accuses him of arrogance, of separating Jane and Bingley, of cruelty toward Wickham. You could not have made me the offer of your hand in any possible way that would have tempted me to accept it. She believes she is being just. She is being certain. Two intelligent people stand in the same room, armed with conviction. Neither doubts their own interpretation. The proposal fails not for lack of feeling. It fails because they trust their own narratives more than each other. Not wounded pride. Interpretive collision. Darcy sees clearly, but without humility. Elizabeth sees sharply, but through resentment. And then comes the letter. No witnesses, no performance, just explanation. Elizabeth rereads it, again and again. Till this moment, I never knew myself. This is not romantic awakening. It is epistemic collapse. She does not realize she loves him. She realizes she misjudged him. Worse, she realizes she enjoyed being certain. Confidence without humility becomes blindness. And now, finally, she sees. The Gardiners, models of discernment. After collapse comes recalibration. The Gardiners provide it. Urban, in trade, socially modest, yet entirely worthy of Pemberley. They live in commerce, not aristocracy, but they possess refinement, steadiness, proportion. Mrs. Gardiner reads Wickham without drama. Intensity is not permanence. Charm is not reliability. She does not sneer. She does not flatter. She observes. Discernment without arrogance. And Darcy's easy respect for them quietly dismantles aristocratic prejudice. The novel begins to suggest something radical. Rank is not moral authority. Judgment is. Pemberley. Moral architecture. Pemberley is not just beautiful scenery, it is character made visible. Order without ostentation. Authority without cruelty. Servants who speak warmly. Georgiana shy, not proud. Elizabeth even admits that to be mistress of Pemberley might be something, not because of vanity, because the estate reflects character. Pemberley stands in quiet contrast to Rosings. Rosings is hierarchy performed. Pemberley is hierarchy humanized. And Elizabeth's interpretive framework fractures. If shyness can be mistaken for pride, what else has she misread? Then comes Austen's manifesto. If gratitude and esteem are good foundations of affection, Elizabeth's change of sentiment will be neither improbable nor faulty. But if otherwise, if the regard springing from such sources is unreasonable or unnatural, in comparison of what is so often described as arising on a first interview with its object, and even before two words have been exchanged, nothing can be said in her defence except that she had given somewhat of a trial to the latter method in her partiality for Wickham, and that its ill success might perhaps authorise her to seek the other less interesting mode of attachment. She dismantles the fantasy of first impression love. Less interesting is ironic, less dramatic, more durable. Elizabeth tried excitement with Wickham. It failed. Now she recognises something steadier. Love is not intensity. It is esteem that survives ordinary life. Lydia. The counterexample. And then, Lydia. Her elopement is not random. It is the logical outcome of a life without reflection. Mr. Bennet jokes instead of guiding. Mrs. Bennet flatters instead of correcting. Lydia equates attention with value, because no one taught her otherwise. She never revises herself. Marriage repairs the scandal socially, but not morally. Austen is blunt. They were brought together because their passions were stronger than their virtue. Lydia and Wickham become the negative image of Elizabeth and Darcy. a reckless marriage driven by impulse rather than understanding. Marriage is not alchemy. It does not transform shallowness into depth. The final transformation. Darcy repairs Lydia's crisis quietly. No spectacle, no announcement. His pride has been disciplined. Elizabeth's prejudice has been examined. Elizabeth may rise in status, but this is not a mercenary ascent. Their marriage rests on something rarer: mutual correction, mutual respect, earned understanding. Compatibility does not mean sameness. He remains serious. She remains lively. But both can doubt themselves before judging the other. And that, Austen suggests, is strength. Intelligence disciplined by humility. The ending. The correction of certainty. The early novel thrives on friction. Wounded pride, interpretive speed, social misreading. The ending thrives on revision. There is no spectacle. Instead, letters, boundaries, tolerable annoyances. Because Austen's triumph is not romance. It is durability. The best marriage is not the most dramatic one. It is the one between two people capable of doubting themselves before doubting each other. And that is why Pride and Prejudice is not merely a love story. It is an epistemology. The real drama was never the wedding. It was the correction of certainty. If you enjoy thinking about literature this way, not as plot, but as philosophy, subscribe for more.